Hello, everyone, and welcome into the fantasy football universe. You know it's a big day and a big going on here when we get my lazy ass out of bed to do a podcast. That's what we're doing. I am Aaron St. Denis. You can find me on Twitter at FFMadScientist, joined by Jesse Moeller at JMoeller05 and Jeremy Shulman at FF_Rebel. Today, we are here for some Stefon Diggs instant trade reactions. So, this just happened in the last half hour. The Buffalo Bills are trading Stefon Diggs to the Houston Texans, along with a 2024 sixth rounder and 2025 fifth. And so it's Diggs, a sixth this year and a fifth next year for next year's second round pick for Houston. That's the first part before we get into how it impacts everyone. I thought that was interesting for a team that's going to need receiver help now. The Bills are drafting this year at 28, which we can just about guarantee either sees them trade up for an elite receiver or take a receiver at 28. But what I thought was interesting is the Texans have no first rounder this year. Their second rounder is 42nd overall. The pick the Bills acquired is the second rounder next year, which is 53rd overall. I would have expected the Bills to want a second rounder this year. They go on a second rounder next year. The fifth and the sixth don't really do much for me. I don't know. I just find that interesting. I think we can basically assume the Bills are drafting a receiver in the first round, whether they trade up or stand pat. Someone's going to Buffalo. Where do you guys want to start with this one?
Yeah, I'm with you. That drumbeat's been pretty loud out of Buffalo this entire offseason, where I think Diggs' brother posted something where he was like, you got to get 14 out of Buffalo, whatever. And it's just been nonstop the entire offseason where Diggs has been unhappy. This kind of seems like a cyclical cycle with him every few years. He gets unhappy in the situation, he wants to move on. So 2026, we'll probably see something out of Houston where he's not happy. But yeah, he wanted out, and with this deal, you can tell they just wanted to get him out of the building. They're like, all right, we'll take the hit now. We'll worry about it. We'll take a wide receiver in this draft and we'll move on. It's just, they'll figure it out from here, but overall it makes a lot of sense to me.
I'm going to switch over quickly. Well, Jeremy, you can react to that if you want. I'm going to switch over. I'm going to bring up what we'll call a depth chart for Buffalo. It's not pretty. So you can talk. I'll bring it up. It's not pretty.
Diggs has been kind of the full tilt diva that we kind of all expected him to be from the moment he's joined Buffalo years ago. Everything is rosy when the production is there and the ball's flowing his way. When it wasn't, that's when things kind of started to deteriorate. I don't know what it was between Josh Allen not getting him the ball, maybe between just a change in philosophy, Diggs' skills deteriorating, a minor injury, what have you. But obviously the production the second half of the year wasn't there. Diggs became unhappy. The team became unhappy. It was just kind of a mess in the second year. Maybe he expected things to go differently, but we saw, a similar attitude with Odell Beckham Jr. in New York, even in Cleveland, right? Sometimes you just get this diva mentality with these amazing wide receivers. You can't really fault it. It comes with the package sometimes. And with Diggs, the production was there until it wasn't. But obviously they, just like Jesse said, this deal is just to get him out of the building.
So with Diggs no longer on this roster, your wide receiver core consists of Khalil Shakir, Mac Hollins, Justin Shorter. If they do not take a first round wide receiver, Brandon Beane should be out of a job. There's no way they don't at very least take someone at 28, 29?
28.
They've got to at least take someone at 28. I see a lot of people are proposing that they think they're going to try and trade up to 6 with the Giants. And use some of this capital to take Malik Neighbors. I love that, but this feels like kind of I know it's not the same situation. Tennessee got a higher pick, which didn't work out, and AJ Brown was far younger. But this seems like a situation here. I know Diggs wants out of the building, but I don't know. I don't necessarily love this. I think they probably were going to take a first round receiver anyways. I would have preferred to get a second round receiver, especially with this year, the wide receiver class is loaded. Next year, it's not going to be as great. It's a running back draft. I would have thought they would want maybe to go back-to-back receiver to start here and would have got the pick this year. But this is ugly.
Well, hang on. Let me present another situation here because I know Jesse will want to speak on this as well, right? If it's not Neighbors at 6, depending on how far Rome Odunze falls, right? The Jets have already said they're wide open to trading the number 10 pick I mean, I could very easily see, I mean, maybe not to the Buffalo Bills to go get Rome, but, it is possible that between neighbors, Rome, who knows, Arizona's open for business as well. Who knows if they go up and get MHJ, but one of those top three would be really exciting in Buffalo.
Well, and also there was on that list, you didn't have Curtis Samuel. So it's like they have
True.
Curtis Samuel, who's a capable NFL wide receiver. So he's going to play for them. I mean, Khalil Shakir's back alive, I guess, in the meantime. But yeah, 100% to your point. Like one of those guys is going to primarily play on the slot. One of them is going to mix around in the flanker position. So having those two guys in the building, and then you have Kincaid, who's kind of like a slot plus tight end. You have James Cook. He's a decent pass catching running back. But overall, they still need that X in that offense. So yeah, I think neighbors would be fun because you can mix them and match them. But yeah, if you need someone to just play the X role, then you go get Odunze. You just lock them in. Either one of those guys would be fantastic for them. And it makes a ton of sense for the Giants, right? Because the Giants need capital. They need players. So like that type of move, getting up in there, it makes sense for both teams. It's just weird taking on the cap hit and then going to do this.
Yeah, that's very true. And then the other thing too to consider, the one guy you didn't mention there, Dawson Knox, he's not going to be fantasy relevant, but even if they add someone, we might just be seeing a ton of 2 tight end sets with just Kincaid moving all around the formation.
So you were right. So we sub out Diggs here. Diggs would be Curtis Samuel, but okay, I guess we'll start with the impact here for Buffalo. Aside from James Cook and maybe the tight ends, the winner is going to be whatever rookie wide receiver lands here, because are you really even if they are the 1 and the 2, they move up on the depth chart. Are you really that high on Curtis Samuel with his age and injury, or Khalil Shakir? Like the winner for me, it's got to be Cook is a huge winner. Kincaid, if you believe in him, and the rookie receiver. I don't think it helps anyone else on this team.
Yeah, I think that's who the winners are, the running back and the tight end. And they've talked about this last year and in the off season. Like Brandon Bean was like, I want to involve those guys more focal on the offense. So they clearly believe in Cook and Kincaid. It might not be the best team building perspective, like they get pushed back on that, but those are the guys in the building that they like the most. So yeah, I expect them to be heavily involved this year.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead.
We're just going to have to see what they do on defense as well. I mean, this hasn't been a team that's been locked down, shut down defense. And they have a lot of pieces that they need to add there. They don't have a wealth of draft picks either. So if they're going after wide receiver, they're going to have to, they might need to look to free agency, right? You still got Tyler Boyd out there, who's a professional wide receiver. You got a couple of options there to fill out that room if you don't go, 2, even 3 wide receivers in the draft.
Is Buffalo now the best landing spot for a rookie wide receiver? It's got to be Buffalo's best spot.
Because it's the Giants, but you have a good quarterback. That's kind of what it is, right? So it's like, yeah, you have that. And you could talk maybe the Chargers with, Herbert. But either one of those 2 spots, because you're getting, if they're really good, upwards of 150 targets. That doesn't seem realistic, but say they smash and have one of the best of all time. Yeah, probably maybe closer to 120, 130 targets.
I'm going to use the quarterbacks here as my way to transition from Buffalo to Houston. Obviously, I think this is the biggest hit goes to Josh Allen. And okay, so is this an overreaction? Keep in mind, I had this ranked as Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, CJ for Dynasty anyways. I now have it ranked CJ, Mahomes, Allen, Hurts. Is that an overreaction that CJ may now be the QB1? Yeah. I see one of you says it's an overreaction. One of you says it's not. Okay, who wants to go first? Who's pro QB1? Who's anti?
All right, sell me, Jeremy. Sell me.
All right, CJ Stroud, super young. Look, we're probably gotta assume a small bit of a sophomore slump, right? That happens to the best of them. But look, Tank Dell's going to be back.
Free agent. Sorry.
He's going to be back and fully healthy at some point during the season. Nico Collins is as close to a 1 as you can get without maybe being a 1. But now Stefon Diggs is the 1. It just kind of puts everybody into their proper role. And you got Joe Mixon in the backfield there. I'd love to see a pass catching back, but Dalton Schultz is fully capable. They've all held up. Everything is now in place for CJ Stroud to ball out. The problem is that defense might be a little bit better than we want them to be in order for Stroud to go kind of nuclear. But I think he jumps Hurts. There's a bit of uncertainty there with Kelsey retiring. How much are they going to use Saquon? I think he jumps Allen here. And really the only question is Mahomes. Can Mahomes bounce back? I don't see a problem with CJ Stroud being mentioned as a top 2, 3. And if you want to put him at 1, go ahead.
I have no idea why they don't have Tank Dell on this depth chart. I think he
Probably
was
the
out
injury.
the last week of the season,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
probably didn't update it, but they updated Mixon. But anyways, Tank Dell and Stefon Diggs are here, and not Robert Woods, John Mechie. But okay, so you're against it, Jesse. We've
Yeah,
heard why
so-
he's for it. Why are you against it?
Allen's been the best fantasy producer the past 4 years. You look at points per game basis, like the things he does, what you need CJ Stroud to get to that level, it's almost impossible for a passing quarterback because he doesn't run. This is the whole thing with fantasy points. Because he doesn't run, he needs to have a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning-esque season to get up to that 25-point threshold, which Allen was at last year. Even though he technically struggled, he had 24.1 points per game. He struggled and got 24.1 points per game. That's the whole thing with Allen. Because he's such a rushing quarterback, he's going to continually rush. Like, there's no way he doesn't rush on this team this year because he's going to be even more dependent to carry himself. It's similar to Lamar, except he's just a better version of Lamar for fantasy. So, like, I'm really not worried about Josh Allen. And I saw a poll where with Heath Cummings posted, Josh Allen's losing to CJ Stroud in Dynasty right now. So if like what I have with my CJ Stroud in one of my leagues, I'm going to go send it from Josh Allen right now. That's what I'm going to go do as soon as I get off this podcast, because the way Allen produces fantasy points is just so much easier. And this is just the way the game is orchestrated. So in 6-point passing TD, like that, it gets a little bit more interesting, right? Because it's a higher focus on passing touchdowns. But if it's a 4 or 5 point, it's easily Allen. I think it's an actual debate. And like you can, if you want to go youth and you're rebuilding, I totally get it. But if I'm a contender and I want to win now, I'm just going to go get Josh Allen. Go get the guy who has a higher ceiling than CJ Stroud, even though CJ Stroud has the best skill position talent, like probably in the league right now.
You're on the board in a super flex startup draft, and for some reason, the top 2 options on the board are Josh Allen, CJ Stroud. Who are you taking, Jesse?
Allen.
Jeremy, who are you taking?
That's really a toss-up. But, you know, we already talked about it. Let's go Stroud, baby. Let's go.
Me too. I'm the tiebreaker. I go Stroud as well. And I realize that might be crazy, but I also think, and I've seen a lot of people discussing it, this year, I think you're going to see a little bit different Stroud. He wasn't a game manager. I don't want to say that, but he was a risk manager last year, and he made a lot of safe throws, which is why the interception totals were down. I think you're going to see a lot more touchdowns this year because he's going to play a little riskier, but also the interception totals are going to go up. So I guess we've decided that CJ Stroud is a huge winner here. I don't know about the running backs. I don't love it for Dalton Schultz, but I guess the most important things here, how do we think it affects Tank and Nico? I'm torn here because I've seen what your post was, where do you think maybe they'll move Diggs into the slot and put Nico on Tank on the outside? Not sure if I love that or hate it. I just don't know. What is he, 30, 29 at this point? How much? Dynasty, I don't think it hurts them very much, if at all. I still love them. Redraft wise, it's got to hurt them a little bit, at least in redraft, right?
Yeah, like he was a round 1-ish pick, and I don't think anyone should be taking him round 1 anymore. Like that's
Are you talking Diggs?
Diggs, sorry.
Oh yeah,
Diggs.
not
that
this
just seems
year.
super risky. Yeah. Like he had so from like grading perspective, he had a worse PFF grade than either Nico Collins or Tank Dell. Like he definitely regressed a little bit last year as he's aging out. And my thought process was he played 30% of his snaps in the slot. If you look at the total slaps, it was more than those 2 combined. So I think an easy way for him to continue on his career to be a good target earner is to throw him in the slot. You let Tank run the flanker position. You let Nico play the X on the outside. And then you let these guys just all do their thing offensively. And that works really well because you still get the Mr. Diva, Stefon Diggs, his targets that way, right? Yeah. So overall, like I'm not too worried about it. I just think it kills the ceiling for these guys. They're going to be a lot of wide receiver 2, a lot of wide receiver 3 finishes. So
it's interesting that this obviously hasn't updated because of the trade, but in current Fantasy Pros redraft rankings for this year, Tank Dell is 45 overall. Stefon Diggs is 46 overall. So you're right. The days of Diggs being drafted as a first-round pick are long gone. But what do you think? How does it affect, I guess, the 3 receivers in general, Jeremy?
Well, for me, Stefon Diggs, everybody was just so down on him that now you have an opportunity to sell and get out from a 30-year-old wide receiver who could put up a great season, maybe 2. But I'm less bullish on that. I think across the board for these wide receivers, they're all taking a hit. They're going to cannibalize each other. I don't think, I think Nico is good enough to keep up with Diggs, even if Diggs is the 1A. And I think depending on how they use Dell and how healthy he is, he also has an opportunity to lead the team in targets, even if they're more short area, as opposed to kind of those boundary and that higher, yards per target that we like to see out of wide receivers. For Dalton Schultz, it absolutely crushes him. I was a bit higher on Schultz even yesterday, seeing him as the tight end 15 on Keep Trade Cut in terms of that value. I was like, oh, that's a great value. Not anymore. Yeah, you can just throw him right in the bin. It doesn't matter. But yeah, this is CJ Stroud and nobody else. I think Joe Mixon is the only one who comes out of this kind of level. But yeah, it's Stroud to the moon here.
Yeah,
we'll start with you, Jesse, as our final question here. Between both teams, who's your biggest winner out of this? Who's your biggest loser?
So the biggest loser is this guy right here that we're looking at, the tight end, Dalton Schultz. Like, he's not even, if you're the fourth guy in offense, no matter how good the offense is, it's done. So like, if you had Dalton Schultz, you're counting on him, like, see you later. I don't know how you could consistently put him in your lineup. Maybe best ball, he got your touchdown, things of that nature. But he's tight end 12 to 18 type range. Like, that just sucks for him. The biggest winner, actually, so I'll say it's CJ Stroud because of how it raises his value, and it's going to prop him up to basically QB1, like we're talking about from a value perspective. The actual biggest winner, I think, is on the Buffalo Bills, and it is Dalton Kincaid. I'm mixing up my Daltons. Kincaid gets to actually be the focal point of the offense. They're going to probably put him in the slot more a little bit, do that too. He's just going to be a more featured point of the offense, and no matter how good this rookie wide receiver is, he's not going to get 160 targets like Stefon Diggs did last year. So I think it opens up the door for him more. Those are my winner and losers, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree with the winner. It's absolutely Dalton Kincaid. I mean, he was already a viable fantasy tight end, someone who you would hope would ascend this year. Now it's almost locked in because unless it's one of those top 3 wide receivers in the class, Kincaid's really going to command targets in that offense. So, I don't think any free agent at this point coming in, or any of those second round wide receiver at this point, even a back end first at the 28, isn't really going to command targets significantly over Kincaid. So I think he's a massive winner. I do like Samuel for his value. He can be a consistent flex week to week for sure. And then for me, the biggest loser here is Nico Collins. I just think Nico Collins, everybody saw him take that big step last year. He was proving when he was healthy and on the field that he could do it and command targets. I think he had, let's see, what did he have exactly last year? 109 targets in 15 games. He easily, I think, could have hit the 135, 140 target mark if completely healthy this year. And that would have done wonders for his value. Continue to see him ascend. Now that's impossible. Diggs is just going to eat too much into that pie.
I don't know if I have a straight answer. I would say my first instinct was to say whatever rookie receiver is the biggest winner that gets drafted by Buffalo. But I don't think that's true. I think if it's a late first, like if it's an AD Mitchell or an early, the second rounder, I don't think that's necessarily true because I don't think they're going to walk in. If they are able to trade up and the receiver they get is Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, I'm all in. That's your winner right there. Assuming at this point, I'm assuming their pick is the 28th pick. That's not my winner. I think James Cook is going to be my winner. He's going to get fed the ball here.
I think so.
My loser is going to be Stefon Diggs himself. I know it's awesome that he's going to a high pass volume offense, CJ Stroud, but Josh Allen threw the ball a lot himself, but he goes from a situation where his only competition for targets was a mix of tight ends and Gabe Davis to where he has 2 of the more talented receivers, as competition. I can't see how he's perennially been a target hog. I don't think that's going to happen. Do we see him hitting what's a good number? 100 targets?
You can, depending on how much they pass. I think that's the more key we're getting at. Here's how high the pass volume is going to go on that
averaging
offense.
Though 140, 150. He's not going to get
for
that.
Diggs. He's been a target like last 3 or 4 every year in Buffalo. He's been like top 5-ish in targets. Like he's been fed, absolutely fed. So yeah, 100%. I'm with you. I think that target consolidation is going to be about 75% around those 3 guys in that offense. So they could all push over 100 targets. Maybe somebody gets to 120, 130, but it's a hit for all of these guys just for the ceiling case. I'm 100% with you. I saw someone in one of the Discords. They were like, I have an offer of Mike Evans 302 for Diggs. I was like, just smash that right now. Like if you could get Evans plus. So if you have Diggs, go shop him right now. See, somebody's probably interested because they have CJ Stroud. Get him off your roster. Like you just get somebody younger, go get a pick, do whatever you got to do or package him into a deal. Because his value is only going to go down from where it's at this point. Like that's
his targets he has. Okay, in his time in Buffalo, 166, 163, 156, 160. He's not going to come anywhere near that in Houston. It's not possible. And like I said, I don't hate him, but he's coming in as the oldest of the receivers. He is, what did I just say? He was 29. He's 30. So he's a 30-year-old receiver coming to a new team. They typically, receivers in their first year with a new team typically take a while to get acclimated. But you have a rookie, what was a rookie quarterback who spent a year building up a rapport, is going into his second year. I just think, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we got to the end of the year and Diggs was the third best of the three Texans receivers. I know it's a little hot takey, but he's old. I think you could see the second half of the season last year, he was noticeably falling off.
Yeah.
Traded him 2 months ago for Waddle.
I love that deal. That's
great.
I'm 100% with you. I know we like Diggs as a player, and he still had a decent PFF grade. I think he's like 79th in receiving. It was close to those two guys, so I still think he's a capable NFL player. It's just, he's going to be more of a guy in the rotation. He's not going to be the primary focal point. So I think we kind of have to shift how we talk about Diggs in fantasy. So that's why I'm saying just get out.
Chuck Bass had some technical difficulties, so I had to reschedule being on his show today. But the theme we were going to be on is a player from each position who had the most to lose at the draft. This is why it's tough for some of these guys, where you need to learn when to sell, like the Devontae Adams, the Stefon Diggs, because you get yourself in a position now where nobody's trading for these guys on the offseason already because they're old, but you get a spot where they get an unfavorable trade. And this one's probably an even-ish trade, not a huge loss, or they get a high, like say Buffalo had managed to trade up to get Marvin Harrison Jr. You can lose these guys and you'll never recoup the value. They're one day they're just dead. So this is kind of the thing where you got to not hang on to these veterans too long. If you were smart and you traded for Waddle like that one guy, you are probably happy with it right now. Anything else we need to mention here before we wrap this one up?
Just to add quickly, just something to keep in mind here, right? Stroud threw it 500 times last year. The targets were just distributed. I don't know if that's a product of the offense or of Stroud. But Nico had 110 targets, and then you got a mess of guys between Schultz, Dell, Woods, and Noah Brown, who's not on this list, all had roughly anywhere from 80 to 60 targets. So, with some of these guys ascending, like Xavier Hutchinson looked good, John Mechie maybe finally healthy, right? I just think it's the perfect storm here for Diggs' value to continue to fall. So you absolutely got to sell him. What do you think you can get? Can you get an early second for Diggs at this point?
I think so. I think you can, if you have to package. I was looking at it on Dynasty Data Lab. He's wide receiver 26. He's ahead of guys like Debo, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, Christian Kirk, Cooper Kupp. Like, we can go down this, Deontay Johnson. You can go down this list and find a guy that you view similarly. Go trade him for one of those guys, or you can package him in the pick like you're talking about. Or, hey, you can move him in Joe Mixon if you're worried about, like, you're going to get this. Like, I'd rather have Mixon than him straight up. So, like, if you need to do that, like, it sounds gross, but, like, just give me the guy I know is going to be a top 12 running back as opposed to that. So
you're talking rookie picks, right? Rookie pick here? You said early second? Okay, so say you want to replace a aging Diggs with another receiver. The receivers in that range, what are you thinking there? Like, you've got Thomas isn't going to fall, but say you've got the two Texas guys, Ladd McConkey. If you're offered Diggs for the 201, what do you take based on, do you like the 3 or 4 receivers you'd be likely to get at the 201 over Diggs? Like, are you taking Mitchell, Worthy, McConkey? And I know we're assuming Worthy goes to Miami, but like, without saying depends on where they land, what do you think about the receivers in that range compared to Diggs?
Yeah, and one of those guys is going to land in Buffalo, most likely, right? If they stick at the 28,
Very true.
You could just get the pick and draft Diggs' replacement, and then after a year or two, he's already out producing Diggs. So I like it very much. Even RB1 or RB2 at that point, I have no issue there taking that guy over Diggs. I just don't. I think his ceiling in this offense is probably 115, 120 targets. That's already a downtick, and he's never going to hit that again after this season. So really, you're relying on touchdown upside with him. I just want to get out and for the highest price possible at the moment.
Yeah, it's a high floor situation for all of those guys. So, and if you're buying these contender points, you want the guys that matter. The guy that really interests me, who's valued lower, similar, is Devontae Adams, because he's older. It's easier to go an older for an older guy. So if he had a bad season where everybody's disappointed in him last year too, so if you could somehow pivot that into that, and someone, maybe the Stroud manager has Adams, and they do the stack with Diggs, like, you make it work that way. I think he's still valuable enough. I think it's pretty easy to get out. And you're talking about the 202, 201, like that's. The nice thing about it is we don't have to draft the player now. So you could get the pick, and then you can kind of decide later on and see what you do for it. So I'm all about that.
All right. I think that's a wrap. We went 25 minutes there. I guess we had a lot to say about Diggs. Check back in about an hour and a half at 2 p.m. We are going to be doing a 3-round rookie mock draft with our special guest, Derek Brown, D-Bro of Fantasy Pros. So we will be back, like I said, about an hour and a half at 2 p.m. Eastern, drafting on YouTube and Sleeper. Thank you all for tuning in to our instant trade reaction for Stefon Diggs. For Aaron, Jesse, and Jeremy, thank you for watching the Fantasy Football Universe. Head over to fantasyfootballuniverse.com for all your fantasy football needs.